Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again. So today, we're going to talk about Johnson admitting they're cutting Medicaid. After months of denying they'd cut Medicaid services and of pretending Trump wouldn't let him, Speaker Johnson has started to admit that the cuts are coming. Of course the cuts are coming. Remember when they directed the House Energy and Commerce Committee to cut $880 billion? Speaker Johnson said, quote, "We have to eliminate on, for example, on Medicaid, who are not actually eligible to be there, able-bodied workers. For example, young men who should never be on the program at all." Okay, that's not correct. Able-bodied young men are not precluded from Medicaid. In fact, you can be an able-bodied young man working full-time and still qualify for some Medicaid programs because you're below the federal poverty level. The fact that you can work full-time in this country and still be below the federal poverty level isn't the fault of the person in poverty. It's the fault of those in Congress who have refused to address the minimum wage in this country. And you don't have to be below the poverty level to qualify for Medicaid. I think it's 138% for some programs. The speaker went on, quote, "When you have people on the program that are draining the resources, it takes away from the people that are actually needing it the most and are intended to receive it. You're talking about young single mothers down on their fortunes at the moment. The people with the real disabilities, the elderly. Nope. Nobody is draining resources except for Republicans looking to cut the programs to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. I'd start paying close attention to the language they're using. It looks like first on the chopping block is the Medicaid expansion. That looks to be the top priority. Even Republicans who are pushing back on cuts seem willing to destroy Medicaid expansion. Representative Nicole Malliotakis of New York said, quote, "We just want to be clear, again, with the speaker, as we've had numerous times before, that we will not vote for something that strips benefits from seniors and our vulnerable population that rely on traditional Medicaid services." I'd start listening for that term, traditional Medicaid services, because they're probably going to get people used to saying it. Then they're going to try to convince the most gullible and ill-informed that anything they want to cut is not traditional. They're going to sacrifice healthcare assistance for those in or just above the poverty level so they can give tax cuts to the rich. They're probably going to try to use the state's trigger laws on Medicaid expansion to make massive cuts, while pretending they aren't. Republicans in Congress can make a 15% cut to Medicaid expansion funding and cause trigger laws in a bunch of states to be activated that will end up cutting 100% of funds. There will be a video below that talks about the states with trigger laws. You need to be watchful on this one. They're going to try to swap health care for those in need for tax cuts for the wealthy. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.